Well, hello there. It's Michael C. Bryan of Wake Up with Michael, formerly MCB Happier. That's my LLC because I think we all deserve to be happier. This is now going to be a twice weekly video newsletter. I'm still going to write things in a newsletter because I know people love to see things in writing. But frankly, I love YouTube. I think it's great. I think reading is one thing. I think video is another. And my question to myself was like, I've been writing for so long. I was like, what can I do that actually I'm excited by? And I love to talk. I swear I came out of my mother just chatty. I've always been chatty. However, I've learned in this work that I've been doing for a long time that I really do help people more when I can speak to them, when I can talk to them, when I can engage, because I've sat across from people for years now in person and on Zoom talking about the meaning of their lives, who they are, what have you. And so this is my attempt. And I'm going to keep it at 15 minutes, which is going to be the challenge for me, to give you something to look at on the toilet, giving something to look at in the car, on the train. This video is meant to imbue you with some practical, pragmatic things that I've learned in life to help you. Now, before we start, I've been doing this a long time. I never liked the word life coach. There's something about it that just felt reductive to me. It didn't really hit. And I couldn't figure out why. But I realized that really life coaches who I've learned a lot of shit from, particularly Jen Sincero, How to Be a Badass. I think she's kind of brilliant, frankly. She tapped into something. They're more like a 360 view about what in your life you want to figure out. So life coaching means every aspect, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, which has been a big thing for me because money has been a big thing in my life. But I try to figure out what's my niche. And here's my niche, and I can tell you right now. Now, if you've worked with me or you know me, I'm very open about my life. I'm a wild open book to some people's great detriment, but you know what? It's who I am. So I came from legitimate trauma. Now, trauma is something that forever I thought, I shouldn't touch that. I shouldn't go there. I'm not a licensed clinician. At this point in my life, it wouldn't stun me if God, the universe, threw me into a university to become a psychotherapist. I wouldn't be surprised. However, that's not where I'm at right now. But what I am is someone who can speak to someone who came from legitimate trauma. Now, I've always said there's big trauma, little trauma. And big trauma is the stuff that I went through, which is having a borderline personality disorder mother, having this incredible self-doubt and this inability to really believe in myself, love myself, because I was so ruined as a child. I was kicked out when I was a kid, so I was a streetwalker. I was a prostitute as a child. All these things are shocking to a lot of people, but you know who they're not shocking to? The people like me who were beaten up as kids, who were discarded as kids, who were drug addicts, who got sober, who had mothers who never loved them, mothers who didn't want them, fathers who didn't want them. The trauma response fucks you up for the rest of your life until you start to understand. And this is the core idea in psychotherapy, which is my work is not just life coaching. My work is blending the spiritual, the metaphysical, the kind of woohoo thing with what psychotherapy is designed to do. And psychotherapy is designed to do, and this is where I'm on steroids, it's designed to help you come up with the answer as to what the wound is that you can't heal that causes you to keep fucking up your life. And my job is not to tell you that. Now, because I have learned to shut up and listen, but I'm also very verbal, I was born to talk, I instead tell people very bluntly, here's your wound, can you hear it? And then they heal a lot faster working with me. It's completely normal in working with me when I work with people individually to watch somebody in the second or third session just break down. And they suddenly see this fucked up sort of thing inside of them, this wound. And once they articulate that and then they feel in the call, and I'm like, I fucking get it. I've been there. And we're together in the call or we're in person, suddenly just the fact that they felt that means it no longer grips them and holds them. So they start to heal. And usually within 2 or 3 days after we have a session, they're bouncing around like fucking Tigger. It's the most beautiful thing on the planet. So I've learned that, psychotherapy, which I try to take the best of, and spirituality, which I do think really matters, and mindset, which is really just fucking do shit. Stop thinking, just do. But don't be a dick about it, but, get going. that really is the trick in life. And also the big overarching view of any sort of modality that's about your mental health, your physical health, trauma recovery, addiction, all this. It's this idea that you've heard a million fucking times if you listen to me or watched people. And I'm going to keep looking at the clock because I don't want to go over 15 minutes. I know today we like our shorter bits. I could talk for hours, of course. Is that you have to be able to articulate what that wound is, and you have to be able to speak to what that wound is, and you have to be able to acknowledge that that is the sole reason why you are in the place you're in. Now, I have a theory, and I feel this theory has been proven many times. Between the ages of 0 to 10 or 0 to 12, that's where most of our wounds have occurred. And when we were psychologically fucked up and we've had trauma inflicted upon us, that's the shit that fucks us up. So whenever I work with someone, and this is what it healed me, I talk to the younger version. I have them send photos of me when they were between the ages of, usually it's interesting. It's usually between like 4 and 10, 4 and 11, usually 6 or 7. 6 or 7 is kind of a funny place. And when I see the photo of the person I'm working with, I then just sort of see them, and we talk to that younger version, and that younger version who was the one that was traumatized, the one that wasn't loved, the one that was either beaten, abused, sexually, physically, emotionally. That side of them is what needs to be addressed. So the work that I do and the work that I can help you with, and Brene Brown just published, it may have been last year, but a couple of clients actually texted it to me today, which of course, after I looked at it yesterday, she's moving her modality back from individual self-help, sort of psychotherapeutic thinking, into groups. And I've worked with groups like Georgia Tech, Paramount. I've worked with a lot of companies, helping them with their consciousness, because a lot of companies are very unconscious. They won't listen to me. They're just very egoic, caught in their ego. So today what I want to talk about in this newsletter, if you are someone that says, I don't identify as a trauma survivor, surprise, you have more trauma than you think. We throw the word trauma around a lot now, but I think instead of just saying, oh, I'm trauma bonding, I'm doing trauma, I think there's degrees of trauma. So that's why I call, there's big trauma, little trauma. Little trauma is the shit where you didn't really, get much attention as a kid. Perhaps your parents didn't love you as much as you deserved, because all children deserve to be awash in unconditional love. There are little things that happen that sort of made you a little neurotic, fucked you up a little bit. But, you aren't plagued by doubt. You aren't hearing thoughts in your head of what a horrible person you are, how you don't deserve to be alive. This is what big trauma does. So there's little trauma, little pins in your heart, little pricks in your heart, by pricks in your heart. That's little trauma. Big trauma is like the shit that I went through and a lot of people that I work with went through. And, I'm not going to hold back here, because what's the point? When you speak these things, they don't lose their power to shock you or control you anymore. But I've heard everything. Like people coming home from junior prom and their father beating them up because they went out too late. Children being sodomized, abused. I know, shocking, right? That was me. And then I was kicked out as a kid, and I was a street walker for a number of years, on and off. When I started at 14, I started to turn tricks at 11. I mean, this data is stunning, right? But when I talk with people and they tell me their stories about being beaten, abused, abandoned, not really loved, rejected, it creates a wound inside of us. And this festering wound will not heal unless we look at it, address it, and this seems reductive, but it's not. You love the fuck out of it. We got to love our younger selves as much as we can. So this work that I do is to help people who came from significant trauma to understand one thing, and it requires incredible work to be in this place, is to realize that your trauma is a gift. Now, my big joke is really, could I get the gift receipt? I'd like to make an exchange. That was always my joke for a number of years, until I started to realize, trauma is a gift. Because here's the thing with trauma. Trauma means that you are wildly emotional, that you sense everything, that you can tell when someone's full of shit. You can tell. Now, the flip side of that is you don't really believe in yourself. You don't trust abundance. You really don't want to talk about God, because, what has God done for you besides made you an abused or abandoned kid, right? So trauma has a catch-22 in it. trauma, if you just hear the word trauma, what we don't understand is that the traumatic response to life is that this is not a friendly place to be. Here's the real bottom line. Recently, I was working with somebody who was in the throes of incredible addiction, and I was working with a psychiatrist in a rehab center, and I was kind of this guy in the middle helping, and we were talking about this traumatic response that this person had, and I looked at them, and you know what I can sense in people, because I know this, I can sense sorrow. I really love people that have lived in the grip of sorrow and pain. Now, I live in Los Angeles. We are toxically positive here. Online, everywhere, everyone wants to be positive. I've been in mindset groups, self-help groups, and everybody's like positive, 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 positive. I mean, so much positivity that it makes you wonder, well, what was the benefit of the darkness? Here's the benefit. So you can't just say, have a positive mindset, always be positive. You can't just Esther Hicks, who's a huge channeler in this work, you can't just live that all the time if you came from a childhood where you were molested as a boy, or you were beaten up as a child, or you were abandoned on the side of the road at 6. Sure, let's be positive. What you have to ask yourself is, okay, so how do I really feel about life having come from significant trauma? And here's what it is. And I realized with this person I was working with, stuck in this addiction, he was ambivalent about being alive. If you really think about that, unless you came from significant trauma, if I say to you, some of us feel ambivalent being alive, that's not going to register to you. That's not going to make any sense because you never had your heart broken as a child. You received unconditional love. So that would be like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I speak to a lot of people like myself. I used to be suicidal. My mother killed herself. So, this is nothing new to me. My grandmother was schizophrenic. But I do these videos. I talk with people. I'm an actor and a writer, but I also do this because I had to do something with that neurotic thing that happened to me. So instead of me bemoaning the fact that, this thing is still with me, this trauma, I thought, how do I help people and make this a creative act instead and talk? So some of you who are watching this, who have experienced significant trauma, I completely relate to this idea that you're ambivalent about being here. You're ambivalent about being alive. Now, what I can say to you is your job in life, your sole job in life, is to develop a practice, and it is a practice, where you find a way to habituate to a happier state of being. Because the thing is, the child that you were when you were young before the trauma occurred, and I'm talking young, that child was always happy. That child was always buoyant. That child had a great time. That child loved to play, color. They were great, right? But what happened is their heart got broken, so you've lost touch with that younger part of yourself. Now, in order to err, E-R-R, over to the side of being happier and to have a happier life by choice, you've got to instead look at the reason why you're not happy. And the reason why you're not happy is there's a very specific wording, thought process, there's a very specific perspective around that inner wound that exists within you. And until you can articulate that, then you're never going to find the solution and the practice, which is daily ways of reading, spirituality, exercise, all these things that are annoying that you hear that make you feel more buoyant. I used to be suicidal, depressive, have anxiety attacks, panic disorders. I'd say 90% of that has now vanished because I spent so many years doing the practice that we'll talk about and I help people with and talk about and what have you. So there's that. So very quick, and I'll end this because we're 14 minutes. Look at that. I'm going to make it. My wound, I find as we get older, between the ages of like between 0 and 12, that's where the wound occurs. But the awareness I have found exists between 12 and like 17, 18, particularly 16, 17. Heard it endlessly from people. So I saw the movie Ordinary People, and Robert Redford recently died. Now, Ordinary People, if you haven't seen it, was a movie made in 1980 about a boy and his brother who are in a boating accident. One of the brothers dies. The brother who dies is like the prize brother. The other brother lived. He survived. The mother, his mother, who was like my mother, cannot forgive him for having survived because her prize son died. So the boy in Ordinary People, who was played by Timothy Hutton, who won an Oscar, as he should have, that boy felt guilty for being alive. My mother, when she killed herself, she left behind these diaries. And the diary said, "I wished Mike had never been born." When I connected the dots between how that movie shook my world in 1980 as a 16-year-old gay kid, and then as an adult, 20 years ago, my mother killed herself, and I saw the linkage between what she wrote in her diary and that, I realized my wound was I never received unconditional love. And I felt guilty for being alive, that I didn't matter, like I was dog shit on a shoe. Now, for most people, that just doesn't equate. They're like, because they can't understand how you can have a mother like that. That was my mother. She was a beautiful monster. So that movie helped me understand my wound. And when you understand your wound and you find the words to understand that you feel like you're not worthy, that you feel like you don't deserve to be here, like you feel that, who are you to take up space, all those things that are horrific to hear, once you find the words for that wound, once you name it and call it out, then you know what your work is to, as I say, in a brand new creative nonfiction book proposal that I have out, which is my memoir called Creepy Kid. It's right now looking for agents out in the world. I'll talk a lot about that coming up. The mantra that I say to people is break the chain now. So your job in life is to break the chain now of all that shit that's not fucking yours. It was your family shit. And to come into a place where you lovingly realize you deserve to be here. It is essential that you are here. Now, that's a good starting point, but then you have to take action in this life to realize your potential from that place. In a world, okay, that's caught up with themselves, you've got to do the inner work to know that you deserve to have wealth, you deserve to have prosperity, and that you deserve to be here. There's an essential nature to you that you were taught didn't exist, but you knew as a kid it did. All right, so the takeaway points, as everybody says I have to give takeaway points in the videos, the takeaway points is if you are someone that came from small trauma in life, it is beneficial to you to do the deeper work to find out what the original wound was that you had as a child. You have to articulate it, name it. If you came from big trauma like me, you must absolutely, if you want to live a happy, successful life, and by successful, I mean spiritually, emotionally, and financially successful, you got to call out that bullshit that held you back. You got to name it, and then you got to start to do the work, which allows you to heal from that and to break the chain of that bullshit that was told to you. That's your parents or your caregivers or other people. It was never yours. Okay, this is Michael C. Bryan of Wake Up with Michael. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you enjoyed today's Friday newsletter. Enjoy the weekend. Oh, happy Halloween.